Hey, welcome back to the Film Tangent Show, ladies and gentlemen. On this mic is Jake. On that mic is Edward, and that is real news right there. That's not fake news.
Yeah, that is
That ain't
that is
yeah.
rules. That is
That ain't the
rules.
fake. It's not the fake news media. So much of the everybody knows the news is fake because so much of the news is fake. That's my
All of
I
it
think
is fake, dude. It's
that's my
all.
favorite Donald Trump quote. He says he literally says there's an actual clip of this. He says everybody knows the news is fake because so much of the news is
It's
fake.
fake.
Yeah, it's like
That's
well, I guess.
hilarious.
Oh shit! Well, I guess you solved it, man.
But for those avid listeners of this podcast, you guys would know that truly on this mic is Jake and on that mic is Edward.
Yeah,
So what
yeah,
this
exactly.
man said at the beginning of this show really was fake news, or was it?
Yeah, dude. Our face. Whenever it comes time for us to do face reveals, that's gonna be epic, man. Those are gonna be some truly epic face reveals.
Because obviously, I mean the audience, I mean, we've had them in some of the thumbnails, but I guess it would be a matter of like which who is who.
Yeah, that's true. Oh shit! Yeah, that's right. Our faces are in some of the clip
Yeah,
thumbnails. That's
yeah.
right. Yeah. I have like 2 or 3 photos to choose of you to choose from for those. So
Yeah,
I'm
from
just
like
like,
Facebook, right?
man, his expression doesn't really match this one, but I guess that's all I can use.
It's one of the. I think the only mystery here is who's Edward and who's Jake. Although I think that's also pretty self-explanatory if you listen to the
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
podcast.
But we're back, everybody.
We're back, everybody.
Like, subscribe, hit that bell icon so you get notified of every new episode, and let's do this. Anyone who gets that reference, you're awesome. 'Cause
Anyone
that
who
means
gets that reference, comment it in the comments.
Yeah,
Tell
yeah,
us
yeah,
exactly where that shit's from.
yeah. Oh, yeah. You know, they'll know if you know, you know.
If you know, you know. And if we remember, we'll shout you out in the next episode.
Yep, for sure. Yeah. So we're gonna actually do something different here. We're gonna start with our recaps because it's been a couple weeks. We took Mother's Day week off because we were both spending time with the moms. So
That's true.
visiting our homes and whatnot, or mom visiting you in your case.
Mhm.
So yeah, let's get into our recaps. You want to start us off, man?
Yeah, dude, I'll start us off. I have a lot to go through. I know that I might spend some time on wrapping up the Kanye West retrospective, which has been a
Yeah.
four-part series at this point. But
Yeah, man.
I really like how I've gone about that. I'm going to clip all of them together and make it into one video. And so I'll put that together for you guys in just like the entirety of the retrospective, all 4 parts. But in this recap section, I'm going to finish the Kanye West retrospective. But before I do that, I'm going to cover the other albums that I've listened to, and then I'll end my recap with Kanye. I know the last time that we spoke, last time that I did the retrospective, we covered up to, I believe it was Kids See Ghosts. But before I get to that, I also listened to a handful of albums. First and foremost, I listened to the classic album, the Hounds of Love, the Kate Bush album from 1985, classic pop album. It kind of brought about a lot of modern pop to this day. Like this is one of the most influential albums. I know that over the past couple of weeks, I think, if not like week and a half, Apple Music did like a rundown of the top 100 albums of all time. I don't know if you were aware of that. And it
No.
landed somewhere, I think, in the top 20. I think the whole thing was controversial because they did not put some things in. They put some things in that people did not agree with. They put in Good Kid, Mad City instead of To Pimp a Butterfly, stuff like that. The number one album ended up being The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill by Miss Lauryn Hill. And I think the number two was, what was it? I forget what number two was, but was it the Marvin Gaye album? I think it might have been. No, it was Thriller with Michael Jackson. And then number three was The Beatles, Abbey Road. Um, I forget what four was. No, four was Prince's, the Purple Rain album, I think it was, and then the fifth one was Frank Ocean's Blonde. Interesting stuff. It has created a lot of conversation. But yeah, listen to Hounds of Love, which is obviously a classic album. I really enjoy it. I think off of it, like Running Up That Hill is kind of like the biggest anthem, and I know it's been popular because of what was it? Stranger Things.
Stranger
Stranger Things
Things,
brought
yeah.
it into the mainstream again, and it really is kind of the biggest like anthem in that album. But the other songs in here, Hounds of Love, The Big Sky, Mother Stands, Under Ice, like there are very good songs in this album. Other than the Running Up That Hill, but Running Up That Hill is the biggest standout song in this album. It's a great album. It's a classic album. Kate Bush is great. I want to listen to her other albums, but for now I'm gonna stop like there, and then I might follow up back with certain artists like after I finish this whole thing in 2032.
Yeah, yeah.
I also listened to an album called Forever Ya Girl by KeiyaA. This is an R&B and soul album that came out in 2020. I found out about this album because I believe this was Best New Album by Pitchfork when it came out. And I found it fascinating. I thought the album cover was like interesting. And I found it interesting too that, you know, like an R&B soul album was the Best New Album. So I wanted to check it out, give it a try. And obviously it took me like 4 years to get to it, but I finally got to it today. Um, I have to say, I recommend this album to whoever likes like R&B music, specifically whoever likes kind of like the more mellow and laid back, like, you know, in the background kind of R&B music, because this is where this album falls under. This is one of those albums that feels like it's trying to create like a tone or like a mood more so than it's trying to create like an album experience. It feels like it just wants you to put it on while you do other things. It's just kind of like very in the background. A lot of the things that happen in the songs are things like there are songs in which, you know, the music's happening and part of the song is that somebody's having a conversation and it feels like they're having a conversation like in the room next to the room where the microphone is recording the conversation. So it makes it, it creates this feeling of just like being around people while you're listening to the music because of like um how like I guess like stereo focused it is as a listening experience. So I found it very fascinating. I don't think it was for me particularly. I'm not very much into like, you know, in the background kind of R&B, but I enjoyed it anyway. I would say that the song number three, Rectify, and song number four, Heavenly, I thought were really good songs, and also song number six, Do Yourself a Favor. I really enjoyed those particular songs, but I would not come back to this album, and neither would I add those songs to any of my playlists. I just kind of, you know, I kind of enjoyed it. I thought it was decent.
Okay.
Outside of that, let me see what else is there. Okay, next up for me is gonna be an album by Casey Lou called Blood, which is also like a pop R&B album, and then Mr. Kendrick Lamar comes on after that. So that's it for music as far as I'm concerned. And there's some stuff that I want to get into when you mentioned them, which is the new Chief Keef album, which
Yeah,
we'll
yeah.
talk about when Jay gets his recap. I'll add to your statements.
Yeah, yeah. Sounds good.
Because I also listened to that album. But I guess as a spoiler, I thought it was great.
Oh,
um,
okay. Interesting.
yeah, no,
All
I
right.
really enjoyed it. And then outside of that, film wise, I watched this is actually something that I watched a couple weeks ago, but I failed to mention it in our last podcast, and it was that I watched a movie, um, a Studio Ghibli like you know, anime film by the name of From Up on Poppy Hill, which is I mean, I'm pretty sure that's the name of the movie. I'm like blanking on whether or not that's the name of the movie. I'm pretty sure it is From Up on Poppy Hill. Um, and it's by Miyazaki's son, Goro Miyazaki. So a little bit of a nepotism movie in the Ghibli catalog. But I found it to be really interesting. It's one of those like post-World War, like period piece movie following a couple of teenagers as they meet, like again in like this kind of very serious time in Japan, and the movie is very concerned with like these themes of holding on to the things of the past, like the things that were important, let's say, to this nation as a people, while also moving forward into the future. So it's really like a movie about like looking backwards while you're moving forwards, if that makes sense. And I really gravitated to that message. I really gravitated to the movie as like like a viewing experience in that sense, and just what it had to say. But I thought that in some other ways, it's a little bit clunky. It has like a romantic element that I won't spoil, like what's about. But when you watch this movie, you go like, "Oh, really?" Which I wouldn't recommend you like reading into it if you want to watch this movie, because I feel like learning this and like the revelations is kind of part of the viewing experience. But the romantic element of the movie was kind of clunky, and there were other clunky elements of the film in terms of its presentation and its character, like the signs. Other than that, I enjoyed the movie. I thought it was pretty good. I commend Mr. Goro because he put out a good movie out of that. And then we're also in the process of watching Tales from Earthsea, which is the first Goro Miyazaki movie that he made. And it's been interesting so far, but I'll have more details about it next time. So all of that, being said, as thoroughly and briefly as I could.
Dang, you made good time there, dude.
I know, right? It doesn't feel like I actually covered this pretty well. I feel like I covered all that pretty well.
Yeah, no, I think so, man. Yeah, you're definitely you have a lot more brevity than I do, I think. Wait, okay, so you took a break from your Kanye retrospective?
No, I finished it, and so I listened to the albums after the fact. But I wanted to cover those two albums that I listened to after it before I got to Kanye. Because I finished with Kanye, and then I listened to the KeiyaA album and to the Kate Bush album because they came after those.
Oh, okay, I gotcha.
Yeah. So to go back to the past, this is the part 4 of the Kanye retrospective. Thank you for listening to all this Kanye rambling, everybody. And I know that this was probably said in the midst of this big chunk of video, if I put it together as one video. Hopefully I do. But I know this has been said before, but neither Jake nor myself agree with any of the things that this man has said publicly against anybody in any way, shape, or form. We're really just discussing his music and his catalog and the discography that he has as artistic pieces outside of the mess that has been his public career over the past couple of years.
Well said.
But all of that being said, we covered.
Yeah, we do need to actually string together this retrospective as clips for sure.
I think it'll be a nice like little section of clips. But we covered the College Dropout, Labor Registration, Graduation, 808s and Heartbreak, My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, Watch the Throne, Yeezus. Also between Watch the Throne and Yeezus, Cruel Summer by Good Music, which he spearheaded. The Life of Pablo, Yay, and Kids See Ghosts. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 albums. Out of those 11 albums, the first 3 albums were great, near perfect albums. 808 was a good album. My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy was a great album. Watch the Throne and Cruel Summer were great albums. Yeezus was a great album. Again, for me, near perfect album. Jake had his reservations about the album. The Life of Pablo, to me, perfect album. Love that album. Really love re-listening to that album whenever I listen to it. Yay, I think is a good album. I gave it the same score as 808. It's kind of like a 7 out of 10. And then Kids See Ghosts is also a perfect album. So those are the ratings so far. So that's a brief recap. And now for this part 4, I think I kind of went over part 3 mentioning it as being the peak of Kanye artistically, which is something that I stand by. Like re-listening to it and studying the music within its context. Like I really think that that's where he peaked as a music artist. All of it kind of culminating in 2018 when he produced Nas's Nasir album, Tiana Taylor's album, Pusha T's Daytona album, which is also a perfect rap album, his own Ye album, and also Kids See Ghosts with Kid Cudi. It's like 5 for 5. The man was, you cannot do better. You cannot do better than that.
Yeah.
Even if in a way it was inspired by hatred, because I know that he also wanted to just like shit on Drake and kind of bombard his like release schedule, which is pretty funny too. Which would I
remember that.
Yeah, because that's when his animosity, that's when his and Drake's like beef kind of like escalated to mainstream like public knowledge, especially with the whole Pusha T story about it on thing. But that brings us to Jesus is King. So Jesus is King came out in 2019, hip hop rap record, but not only hip hop and rap, also Christian album.
That's right.
This is a religious album. This peaked and went number one in like all the like religious like Christian like Billboard charts, and he won awards for this as like the best like I believe it won like best Christian album and stuff like that. It was pretty crazy. But this was around the time with Kanye where he was doing every Sunday, he was doing something called a Sunday service. Um, which was always being like live streamed, or celebrities were always there. Like Brad Pitt was always there. Like celebrities were just randomly always there, and people were very curious as to like the music that would come from that. Kanye was like always wearing white, and like just
Yeah.
again doing all this public. And the fascinating thing about it is that he was like a lot of the Sunday service thing was him going to like colleges, like public, like historical Black universities, and like being there with the kids and with the students. And like he was a lot of this was like actually him just traveling the US with his choir, like with his band, and performing live with people, which I think is really cool. Um, and out of it, there's like a lot of clips of like songs and beats that he produced that had never come out up until recently. And there's a lot of cool stuff came out of that. And so again, he made Jesus King. That was also part of the whole thing. 11 track album, only 27 minutes for 11 songs. Um, Obviously he was kind of playing against the trends at the time, because at this time, and also at the time that Yay and Kids See Ghosts came out, the big trend had been for years to basically release 20 plus song albums just to
Yeah.
bombard the music streaming services. And even if for artists are released, like let's say like an album with 16 songs, a couple days later it'll be like, oh, here's the deluxe, and the
Mhm.
deluxe is 10 songs. So that
Yeah.
became like a
None of which became classics,
exactly. So
you
that
know,
this
for
is
obvious
this
reasons.
is around the time where this became a trend, and at least at this time, Kanye continued to be like a counterculture cultural figure, where he's just doing things against the grain, and this album was part of that. Which in a way, in and of itself, is a little bit like admirable. Like, oh, everybody's doing this like trap rap things, and it's like, oh, I'm gonna make a Christian album, and I'm gonna make it 11 songs, and it's gonna be 27 minutes, and it's not gonna be an hour with 28 songs, and and just the same middle of the road stuff, which is and that in and of itself is a pretty interesting thing. But the album came out, and I remember you and I listened to like I think half, if not all, of this album like in one sitting. And suffice it to say, we were both very disappointed. And
Yeah, I remember.
yeah, and I know you hated this album, especially with the mixing, because I know that a complaint of yours had become with Kanye that you didn't like that his voice was like mixed higher than the production. And
Yeah.
that is something that was like an issue in Yay, and there was something that was an issue in this album, although it had never
Yeah.
been an issue before. And
Plus
I've
his delivery over the years.
yeah,
If you listen to his delivery becomes a lot more like just what's the word I'm looking for? Just aggressive,
aggressive. Yeah,
which I think that can really be overdone. Like
yeah,
that's one of the reasons I don't listen to Meek Mill, because he like I don't like his rapping style. Like
yeah,
it's just like
yeah,
it's like
yeah.
shut up.
And it is
Shut
true
the fuck
that
up.
for him, it seemed like he, especially with those two albums, he was kind of leaning into that a little bit too much, of just kind of being like, I'm just gonna be loud, and
Mm, yeah.
that's gonna be what the performance is, and it's not gonna have like layers outside of that. Where I always thought that Pablo was such an interesting album, because a lot of those songs like FML L with The Weeknd, or like 30 Hours, the performances that he has on those songs are very like complex. A lot of those songs he sounds like, or like in Saint Pablo, the last song, he sounds like he's like near like tears, or like just very emotionally moved, and you kind of lose that with these two albums, which is fascinating because it's like a Christian album. What I do have to say is that I always thought that the song number two, like Sela, that song, I always thought that was a pretty good song. I always enjoy that song. I like how this album starts, because it starts like in a really positive way. And what I have to say is, like, for me, I very much enjoy and get a lot of like positive like feelings out of listening to like gospel and Christian inspired music. Like I get a lot from that. Like I really vibe and gravitate with that. So that's also part of like why I enjoy so much The Life of Pablo. That's like a big reason why I really like love that album. So when this album was gonna come out, I was really excited, and I think you might even remember me saying that to you. Like I'm really excited because I love it when Kanye's
Yeah.
playing with choirs and like adding all this like like soul samples and like all this like gospel samples. I always found that he was kind of in his bag when he did that. But this album was disappointing, man. Like it came out and like the main single for it was "Closed on Sunday," like that Chick-fil-A song where he goes like, "You're my Chick-fil-A," and it's like that's a pretty
God.
bad song. Like that song is pretty bad, and it's like the worst thing about that song is that for the first time in his career, it's like for a while he had been flirting with really bad lyrics that become like iconic, like, oh, I said this thing that people think is dumb or like stupid or whatever, but then it becomes like something that people keep saying and keep saying and keep saying, and it becomes like a part of like the zeitgeist. And it felt like that was his attempt with this song, and then he failed like miserably.
Yeah.
um, so it's like this song is just like about a bunch of like hit and misses. Like again, I like Every Hour and I like Sella, but Follow God and Close on Sundays, I just don't. It's like an On God is just like a lame kind of like like
That's the one produced by Pierre Bourne.
yeah, Pierre produced that
That's
song,
that's the one that I like
and
of
it's
this
like
album, actually.
I dig that song.
Not
And
enough to put it on any
I
playlists,
dug
but
it when the
got
song came out, and like re-listening to the album, I just thought that it was kind of like weak. I was like,
yeah,
because it betrays everything else. It's like it's the one song that sounds like that in the whole album, and it's like,
yeah,
why would you do that? Like, aren't you trying to create like a listening experience here? And then this song stands out like a sore thumb.
yeah.
I do have to say though that the songs "Everything We Need" with Ty Dolla, "Water" with Ann Clemens, and "Hands On," particularly "Hands On" with Fred Hammond, I think those are great songs. Like Ann Clemens and Fred Hammond add a lot to those songs. I think those are great. Like legitimately, like the 3 out of the 4 best songs in this album, I think, are those songs. Ty is really good in Everything We Need. And Clemens with the, performing that Water song. I think those are just like really nice songs. The production is like really like weirdly like mellow and like how do I say this? Like it's like peaceful, it just makes you feel like tranquil. And again, Hands On is one of those songs too, where it's just like I think if he had made an album following that trajectory with those songs, I think he would have succeeded. Because I remember that at the time, what he was messing with a lot was with light therapy. That was like a big thing, and that's why the album's cover is what it is. Because a lot of things that he was doing, I was working with this specific guy. I don't remember his name, but it was this whole thing of like, let's light rooms a certain way to create like a very serene like mood for people. Like he got really into just like therapy and like therapeutic processes through music and through light. And I think that with those 3 songs in particular, I think he really nailed it down. And then everything else just kind of felt like an attempt at something that didn't quite land. It almost felt like he was playing Kanye by checklist. Like, oh, I need the what is it, the Beautiful Morning song, with Close on Sundays. Like I need certain songs to come out of this, and then I'll dedicate some songs to the mission that I have with this album. And I just thought it was a mixed bag. I do have to
Mm.
say that Use This Gospel is a great way to kind of close everything out. He brought Clips back together. Kenny G's on the song. Kenny G's little solo is really great, man. Like this is
I like Kenny G.
like legitimately like Use This Gospel is legitimately like a really good song. And that's what I had to say. Like I thought those 4 songs, Everything We Need, Water, Hands On, and Use This Gospel, I thought those 4 songs were like legitimately like great songs. And then everything else was just a hit or miss.
Whenever I play Kenny G, like back home or whatever, my dad always he always goes like heading up to floor number 3 because like he said it sounds like elevator music.
Yeah. But he
I'm like,
popped
nah,
off,
man.
man. Like
I like Bossa Nova. I think Bossa Nova
Bossa
is
Nova is
like
great, yeah. Bossa Nova is
that's
good.
the subgenre, right?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure
Yeah,
if
yeah.
that's where does he fall within that subgenre?
He kind of well, he has at least he has an album called Brazilian Nights that
Okay,
is
good.
full
Yeah,
on bossa
full on
nova.
bossa nova. Okay, yeah, that sounds good. I should
But
listen to that because I really like bossa nova.
dude, I like elevator
I do
jazz. I
too,
like
man.
all jazz. Like I'm kind of like, again, like there's certain genres where I embrace every subgenre, right? Like
Jazz is
rap,
one of
I
those.
embrace
Yeah,
almost every subgenre of rap,
I
and
do too.
jazz,
Almost.
same thing. I embrace like almost every subgenre of jazz.
Yeah,
Where
I
I
feel
love
that.
traditional jazz, like acid jazz,
Yeah,
psychedelic, whatever it is, elevator jazz, bossa nova, all that
yeah.
shit. I definitely embrace. And then there's other genres like metal, for instance, where I only like a couple of
It's
subgenres.
funny because you saying that like the elevator stuff, elevator music, reminded me of that Eminem because Eminem has that like Rap God song in which he has a line that he says, "Elevator music, you mean elevated music." I think that's
Wow,
how it goes. Yeah.
brilliant,
Lyrical
Eminem.
miracle, dude. But yeah, that's Jesus is King. In my opinion, like, and I feel like it's become widely acknowledged. In some ways, a little bit of an underrated album, but it's become widely acknowledged. Like, this is Kanye's like first like this is not a good album. Like at least his first like this is just not a good album. Um, in my opinion, mediocre. Like just mid, 5 out of 10. I don't think it's bad. I really don't think it's good, but it does have some good in it. But it is like the first fail. Like in his career, like again, we've covered 12 albums, and this is 13th album, and this is the first one where it's like, yeah, this is not it. Um,
Yeah.
then a couple years later came Donda. And I remember Donda. There was like a lot of hype around the Donda time because there had been just so much build up, so much conversation. There's a new album coming. There's a new album coming. There's a new album coming, and everybody just wanted a return to form because everybody, Jesus is King was not it. It didn't flop commercially, and obviously he won awards for it anyway. But it just wasn't what everybody wanted. So then it was just like this big conversation of, Donda's coming. Donda's coming. When's the album coming? When's it gonna come out? I don't think the name was even out at the time. And he had also gone through a very public divorce with Kim Kardashian. So everybody wanted, in people's heads, and I know this sounds fucked up, but this is what was happening. I'm trying to just paint like a picture of the time. In people's heads, it had become this thing in people's minds of like Kanye made, his first few albums, and then he made a lot of great work, post again, I'm just trying to create a context here. Post like his ending engagement with his previous like, to be wife, and the departure of his mother because his mother passed away. And then
Oh yeah.
post that obviously he made, everything else that he made subsequently after that. And so a lot of people had been blaming his decline musically on being married to Kim Kardashian, which I'm not going to attribute anything to that. I think that's horseshit.
Yeah.
But
It's weird.
obviously, a lot of people. Obviously, this is kind of like what the public opinion was at the time. And so he had this very public divorce, and there was a lot of animosity that came out of that. A lot of this is Pete Davidson and so on and so forth. But also part of this at this time, or I think Pete Davidson actually might have come. Pete Davidson came after Dawn, that actually, not before it. But also at the time, a lot of conversation was, "Oh man, this album's gonna pop off. This album's gonna be great." A lot of people were like, "This album's gonna be great. This is gonna be amazing." Because he's not with Kim Kardashian anymore. That was like that was the whole conversation about it. And I remember that at the time I was in Chicago making a film produced by you with our good friends. And a lot of the conversations that we had during that time were, when's the album going to come out? Because he was doing the very iconic to this day, like live performances where he was wearing all those like black suits and red suits and like spiky suits. Like it was a very iconic like rollout. And also him and Drake were having like a back and forth beef. And then part of it was the conversation of who is going to release the best album, who's going to be, the one that the people are going to listen to, who's going to come out on top. There was a lot of hype, man. This was a hype time. Drake's going to drop, Kanye's going to drop, who's going to drop first, what's going to happen. And then Donda came out. And then Donda came out, and it was a whole black album. The cover was black. And I remember that at this time, people were shedding on everybody's album covers because people were releasing just very bad. Everybody was releasing like shitty album covers. Drake's For All
Yeah.
the Dogs, not For All the Dogs. Drake's Certified Lover Boy dropped like the week and a half after that, and people were shitting on that album cover because there was a bunch of pregnant women on the album cover, pregnant emojis rather.
Yeah. That has to be one of the worst album covers of all
Of
time.
all time.
Ever.
Of all time. Yeah, there's no saving that. But Donda came out, and so for the people, the wait was finally over. And so it came out, and it was a 27-track album, 1 hour and 49 minutes. And so something became clear right away, and it was that, this was not 2010s Kanye anymore. Like he was playing into the music streaming algorithms. Like he wanted to get streaming services popping, and he wanted this album to be really successful in streaming services. So he made a compromise in this album, and that to this day is very clear. There was a compromise in quality with this album. What I have to say is, Donda Shant is a very powerful beginning to this album, and it's followed by the song Jail with Jay-Z, which is a great song.
Yeah.
Like that's a
Jail's
great song. Mike Dean.
Is it Jay-Z? I thought 2 Chainz was on Jail.
No,
It's Jay-Z.
it's Jay-Z. There is like a there is like a
It
Jail.
must be Mandela effect.
There
or
is a
something.
Jail Part 2. There's like a bonus track that came out in the deluxe album. That, and we'll get to the deluxe
Oh.
album. That featured, instead of JC, featured the baby.
Oh.
Yeah. So yeah, there's that. But yeah, Jail, which has Jay-Z again, great song. I think this is like a legitimately great song, and it was so hype at the time because Kanye and Jay-Z had a lot of public animosity following like a public meltdown that Kanye had, in which he said a lot of things about Jay-Z, including Jay-Z, I know you have killers, please don't set them on my head, which I think is such a funny thing to say. But I mean, the implications are dark, but at the time it felt funny. But they had a public falling out, and people had not seen these two guys together. And then in this album, it was like, oh my God, here they are, And Jay-Z rapped on it, and Jay-Z kind of clowned Kanye because at the time he was, wearing a red cap with the whole "Make America Great Again" stuff, which we're not going to get into that. And that also had been part of like people's distancing themselves from Kanye in the public space. But also, again, Mike Dean produced this song, and he has like guitar riffs all over this thing. That's how it opens, with Kanye like singing over those guitar riffs. It's such a powerful song, which then leads to God Breathed, which I also think is such a great song. Just it's, the chorus is saying, God breathed on this, like on this song. And there's a guy in this song, I forget what his name is. I said Ivory or Vori. I think his name is Vori, whom does kind of this very melodic, like beautiful vocals on this song, which I mean, impeccable. So I remember when I listened to this thing, and then listening to this thing again, I was just kind of blown away by how powerful the songs were, like one after the other. Again, yeah, Vori is the one who was featured on it. So then you go from God Breathe, and you go to Off the Grid, which was like the biggest hit off of this thing. Because Off the Grid was a New York drill song with Playboi Carti and with Fivio Foreign, who performed basically the featured of his lifetime on this album. If you haven't listened to Off the Grid, go listen to Off the Grid, and you'll get what I'm saying. And then people were also blown away with Kanye because nobody thought Kanye could rap over a drill bit, and he did. And it was great, and like it had some goofy lines in it, but to this day I still love when he gets to the part where he goes like, "There's people playing, football in my backyard." No, he says soccer, and he goes, "Soccer in my backyard." I think I see Messi, and then the beat goes crazy again. I love this song; it's a great song.
Yeah,
it's kind of peak. This is like peak New York drill, like. Kanye peaked New York drill here. After this song came out, New York drill fell off. Like it fell off after this. Like it peaked here. And Fivio Foreign, who was like one of the biggest New York drill guys at the time, this is like his best performance ever. Great song.
Well, until I guess I don't know if you mean fell off as in like in quality or just in the
the public,
mainstream eye,
yeah, in the
because
public like eye of it all. Not in
kind of came
not in
back with
quality.
Ice Spice though, didn't it?
Yeah.
Because isn't Ice Spice New York
Not
drill?
really. She had that one song. That one song that she had. Like that one song that she had was that she was doing it over that drill, and I think she had a couple more after that. I think she's moved past that sound now, because it's
Has she?
yeah, like her newer songs are not. I don't think they're that. I might be wrong though. I don't know, because
Yeah,
she's kind of
I
falling.
don't
She's kind
plan
of
on.
falling off a little bit.
Oh, is she?
Yeah.
She kind of stayed. Her palling around with Taylor Swift has really done her
Yeah,
done her well
it's done
for
her well
sure.
for her at least remaining in the public sphere. But I don't like in terms of music wise, I don't hear people talk about her music much anymore.
Oh yeah, because her
Maybe
music's not very noteworthy.
no, and the songs are very short. I think that's also part of the issue.
Yeah, she kind of honestly, man, like just to deviate for a second here, like like I. I listened to because I was curious like what kind of music she even made because I
Mhm.
just heard about her with all the Taylor Swift stuff and which funny enough that collab came about because of our boys Nick Mullen and Adam Friedland.
I know, I know that. Yeah,
It's so funny.
yeah.
Yeah, we're actually friends with them, legit friends.
Our
My good friend
boys.
Nick Mullen.
Yeah.
But uh yeah, like I went to listen to her music because I was just curious what she sounded like, and man, like there's nothing noteworthy about her
No.
music in my opinion. Like just nothing noteworthy. And honestly, she kind of is you know, not that there hasn't been proof of this in the past, but she's just further proof that like really any sometimes it is just luck,
Yeah, it
you know?
is. It
Like there's
is.
no I'm not saying everyone's had like some struggles in their life and stuff, but it's not I mean, how old was she when she blew up? Like I mean, probably like 18 or something. I
So
mean, she's
I
young.
don't know. I think so. I think so.
And her music's not even like anyone could make those
Right.
songs.
I think
Anyone could make those.
a lot
Anyone
of
could spit those bars she spits.
yeah.
I think
No,
anybody
anybody. Yeah, that
could could spit those
that's the funny
bars.
thing about it. It's like the most unmemorable, like just even kind of lazy like stuff. But I mean, it is.
Very
It
lazy.
is what it is.
Like I'm a fan of. I mentioned. I think maybe last podcast. Like I'm a fan of Pink Pantheress. I think
Hmm.
she's one of
Hmm.
like the great like newer pop artists,
Hmm.
and um, they have a song together. And like when Ice Spice comes on, I'm just like, oh my god, there's like these are two completely different playing fields
Yeah.
of talent.
Yeah.
You're like
Truthfully.
there is nothing
But
about
that I
this
mean,
verse
but
that was
that goes to tell
memorable
you
or anything.
that goes to tell you like what the fucking mainstream is right now with music and has been for like the
Yeah.
past like I don't know 15, 14 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes it is just luck. It's just right place, right time, right song, hit the
Yeah,
algorithm just right. And
exactly.
then, boom.
And then the music labels just force you into the public.
Right,
They
right.
just shove it down
Yeah.
people's throat until people get tired, and then somebody else comes around. Like now it's Sexy Red.
Yeah.
Sexy Red's now the one. It's like every year there's somebody else. Like they
Yeah.
replace
Yeah.
you with somebody else. Like Sexy Red now it's like the big like female like artist people are like paying attention to. She even made it to the fucking Chief Keef album.
Yeah. Yeah. Which we're going to talk about, folks.
Yeah.
But yeah. But even someone like Pink Pantheress, like, I was thinking about this because she's great. I mean, I think she's very talented. She's more talented, like, obviously, than like the average musician, but I'm sure there are at least a few dozen artists out there that are just as talented as she is, but
Mhm.
just didn't happen to tickle the algorithm
Right.
in the
Yeah.
same way. And that's just how it happens,
It is.
man, in the entertainment
That
industry.
really is.
I
That
think
really is.
if you were a time traveler and you kicked a rock, I think someone else could be in her place right now.
Purple
This is kind of how
Panthers.
it is.
Yeah.
Now you can in the entertainment industry, and again, take this with a grain of salt. I'm a 26-year-old person who hasn't yet quite like really made it in the
Mhm.
entertainment industry. I've done things within the industry, but I haven't, gotten like a big break or anything as a writer. So, again, take this with a grain of salt. I'm just a fucking 26-year-old person still figuring out the world. But you can increase your odds of getting lucky, but there's always some luck involved in these things, I
Right.
think,
Right.
for sure.
No, you're right
But
about that.
anyway, Kind of a side tangent there.
But back to Mr. West.
Mr. West, Mr. West.
But yeah, dude, going from Donda Shan to Jail to God Breathe to Off the Grid, it was like a great back to back to back to back. And then you get to Hurricane, which is also like a really great song with The Weeknd, which it just has like beautiful vocals by him. And this is where it kind of starts to come together what Kanye is doing with the gospel samples. Because Kanye's doing something in this album that I thought Fantano described it well in his review, where he is pitching these vocal samples in a really unorthodox way where you don't know exactly how to place it. It's almost like it sounds like you're listening to these things coming straight through at the highest of quality, like just pitch perfect, beautiful quality, but almost like in this vintage, like from like a film from like the 60s or something. Like he did something to this. He scratched these records in such a weird way where the gospel samples have this eerie, like ghostly, like quality to them, and it's like supernatural. Like it's fascinating. And again, this is of his albums. This is the only album that he was able to do that. I believe that this supersedes like his production in The Life of Pablo in terms of like the quality of production. And it's fascinating because with Off the Grid, it came out with Off the Grid that it took, I think, to make Off the Grid took like a bunch of like man hours. And I know that I'm going backwards because I'm talking about Hurricane, but with Off the Grid, it apparently took like a bunch of man hours, and it was being reported at the time that people had to go without sleep and stuff like that. And I think a bunch of like artists had gone online. I don't know if I was one of those artists or not. Don't quote me on that. People had gone online to basically say like something along the lines of like, for the quality of music that this is, it was worth it. And I think this is kind of the mentality that I approach this album with, because the peaks in terms of musical quality that Kanye reaches here are like really kind of outstanding with the songs here. Like the weaker things in some of the songs, a lot of the time it's like somebody having a bad verse or Kanye saying some awkward thing in his verse, but everything else, like in terms of production and delivery and beat selection and sample selection, is impeccable. Praise God, which is a song between Travis Scott, Baby Keem, Kanye, and the sampling vocals of Kanye's mom. It's also kind of a powerful song, kind of a hit or miss song. It's like this is the first song in the album that kind of feels like, some hitters, not the greatest, still a good song, but this is the first kind of dip in quality. Baby Keem's feature is not that good. He just kind of says a bunch of random shit. Which sometimes when you listen to the song, it's cool and sometimes it's whack. But then this is where we hit the real dip in quality in this album. Because then, right off of Praise the God, the beautiful thing with this is that you had Donda Chan, Jail, God Breathe, Off the Grid, Hurricane, Praise God, kind of. You had 6 like incredible kind of songs back to back to back, except for Praise God. But then you get to Jonah, with fucking Lil Durk, and Jonah's not that good. Jonah's kind of like a lame, forgettable song. And then from there you get to Junja, which I really like actually from there you go to Okay Okay, with Lil Yachty. And Okay Okay sucks ass, man. Like he just says okay okay, it's not okay. Like that's like the chorus. Lil Yachty sucks ass in this song. Everybody sucks ass. Like this song is terrible. And then Junja comes in, and his Junja is with Playboi Carti. And I like Junja. He's saying Junja Watanabe on my wrist, because he's talking about the fucking Junja Watanabe like wrist like jewelry collections. And I said the song's cool. I like Playboi Carti in the song. It's a good song, but it's not a good song in the context of this album. Because it's like, bro, you set out to make this like gospel album named after your mom, where you sample like public like speeches or like audio recordings that you have of her, and then you have fucking Okay Okay with Lil Yachty and Junja Watanabe. It's like what are these songs? It's like just random. He just put random songs again. Like if he had chosen not to fucking make this like an algorithm album, this album could have been so successful. Like in terms of like its message, but he watered it down with like with just like silly songs, you know. Um, from here, we go to Believe What I Say, which is a good song and which brings us back to kind of like the themes of the album. Because again, this whole album, the theme of this whole album is like this whole idea of like self cleansing, you know, and seeing the world through new eyes and saying, you know, that the Lord has you and that you have like something to rely on and purpose and again like that a lot of these songs just carry this message and this message of like almost like eternal life and resurrection and forgiveness, you know, which is beautiful because obviously he's talking about his mother and his relationship to his mother and his relationship to God, you know, and how his mother kind of shaped that, you know, and how he's kind of matured as a human being. And then when you have songs like fucking Okay Okay and Jojo Watanabe, it's like, what are these songs? Why are they here? You know? But
Yeah.
again, we get back to fucking what is it? Believe What I Say. Which Believe What I Say is such a good song because Believe What I Say samples like the song Do Whoop from The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill, the number one album according to fucking, you know, Apple Music of all time. So obviously this comes out as like a really good song. You know, it's like a really good kind of more of like a little like pop like religious anthem in a way. And it has like this really funny guy who has like a really cool accent, you know, and he's like talking about like some woman or some person that might have been putting him down, but that he's, you know, he's feeling big and he's cool and things are great. This is a great song. I love this song. Happy song, love it. And then from here, it goes into 24, which again keeps on with this like religious motifs. And again, the gospel samples in this song are surreal. I was blown away from this song when I heard this song for the first time. And when I heard this song again, I was blown away by this song again. This song is insane, like how powerful this song is. When you think about who he's talking about, because he's talking about his mom, and there's also some kind of like numerical motifs, obviously with like the 24 hours in a day, but also with Kobe Bryant because his number was number 24. But he's just talking about, you know, 24 hours, 24/7. You know, it's like he feels like he has this godly presence with him. And then I mean, again, the performance he has in this song is just powerful because it's also talking about his mom and this idea again that, you know, his mom was with him at all times. So this is a incredibly powerful song. The saddest thing about this song is that the next song is Remote Control with what's his face, the guy that's in jail facing trial. What I have it pulled up.
6ix9ine?
No,
No. He's not in jail.
Remote Control.
Young Thug.
Yeah, Young Thug. Yeah, this song sucks, man. Like Remote Control sucks. I don't know why he did this. It's also one of the like more terrible songs in this album. And the worst thing about this, the worst crime with Remote Control, is that the song right after is fucking Moon with Kid Cudi and Don Toliver. And it's like, bro, if you had taken out Remote Control or just put it on the deluxe, it would have made for such a beautiful transition to go from Believe What I Say to 24 to Moon with Kid Cudi and Don Toliver putting out great performances, you know.
Yeah, it's a good song.
Incredible performances. Like that song is just Cudi, Toliver, and Kanye just singing, and the singing overlapping over each other's singing, you know, and melodies and humming. Beautiful song. Beautiful song. Part of like this, like, I guess, like Kitsy Ghost anthology of songs. Heaven and Hell is great. It has some scatting by Kanye, which I like. I've liked Kanye's scatting albums since he did it in that Kitsy Ghost song. That song, the first one. See the Love. Feel the Love. But yeah. So I like Heaven and Hell because of that. And then Heaven and Hell leads into the song Donda, named after Kanye's mom and the namesake of the album also. And this song to me also is an insanely powerful song. Because most of the song is just like this beautiful instrumentation, like beautiful, like gorgeous instrumentation, over just Kanye's mom talking for like 2 minutes. And I know that doesn't sound like a grand thing, but if you listen to this song within the context of the album, and if you listen to this song particularly after you listen to Moon, it's gut punching, like how powerful the song is, especially because then it leads into Keep My Spirit Alive, which is also like an insanely good song, in which out of nowhere he brought West Side Gun and Conway the Machine, who both of them had great fucking features in this song, and Kanye had like an incredible performance, and the song just feels joyous, and just full of like love for life, and again Kanye just talks about his mom, and keeping her spirit alive and her memory. I mean, again, the songs, dude, they're powerful, man. Like, to me, this is like his most like personally just very powerful, like gut wrenching album. Um, After that, we get Jesus Lord, which is like an 8 minute song, and it's not even 8 minute, like 9 minute song, and it's him and where is it at? Jesus Lord, yeah, 9 minutes, and it's him and Jay Electronica, which they did pretty good. I don't listen to that song very often. It's just so fucking long, and it's not long in like a like cool way. It's like long, like, oh, this is long kind of way, but it
Yeah.
still fits with like the context of the album. New again about being made new again, kind of like a little bit more of like a pop song, or like a more like upbeat song, if that makes sense, with Roddy Ricch and Shinzia, which I thought is also a great song. Um, Wait, let me see. Television keeps my spirit alive. Jesus Lord, yeah. Um, so let me see. Keep my spirit alive. Jesus Lord, yeah. So New Again. Television is horrible because Television is just what's his name? Pop Smoke saying we made it. It's horrible. It's just like this weird like sampling of him saying we made it for no apparent reason. Pure Souls with Already Reach and Sincere. That's the one with Pure Sincere. Pure Souls, not New Again. That's a great song. And then the song basically climaxes. Like the album, it reaches this climactic point with "Come to Life," which again, I know I've said this a lot about these fucking songs. It's an insanely powerful song, and it has this like minute long like piano like solo. And the piano solo in this album was like performed by like this child like prodigy, like this young girl, like this young like Asian girl, I think,
Huh.
performed it. And he got the girl, and like I think he paid her, and she performed it, and he put it in the album, which I thought is really cool.
That's
Um,
cool.
Insane song again with the soul samples and with the gospel samples and with that piano that just runs through that whole song. I have a clear memory of just driving, listening to that song, and I mean, this song. I mean, again, insanely powerful song.
That's
Um,
what some of my favorite like artists do is they like reach into obscurity,
yeah,
and they're just like, well, who or what can I take from just really obscure
exactly. Yeah,
stuff? And
yeah,
you know what I mean? Like I feel like Doom was really great about that, where it's
yeah,
like he sampled like some of the weirdest stuff sometimes, or like,
yeah.
I like that stuff where it's just like, let me get this just random. Like Kanye is great about that too with like Kids See Ghosts. They just, like what's that song, Fourth Dimension?
Hmm, hmm.
Just sampling an old Louis Prima
Yeah,
Christmas song. It's
yeah,
like
yeah,
I'd never heard of
yeah,
before either. That's like not a famous Christmas song.
yeah. And
Yeah, so I like that stuff.
it's fascinating because then this album, and then the last album, the last song is No Child Left Behind, which is just like I think it's just Vori, the artist that he continued to get into songs here. I think it's just Vori saying, No Child Left Behind, No Child Left Behind over this like instrumental. And the album ends, and I legitimately, dude, legitimately, I think that if you took Remote Control out of this album, and then you took Okay Okay, Jonah, and Junja, the Junja Watanabe song, if you took those songs out of this album, I would be okay with saying to you, like, I think this is like a perfect album.
Yeah.
He just paid tribute to his mom, and he paid tribute to his like again like his gospel and like Christian roots, and just feels like a very spiritually like fooled album with a lot of just like gut wrenching, like really powerful like songs. If not for those albums, if not for those songs, I think this thing would be impeccable. Um, it's also longer because at the end it just says it has Jail Part Two, Okay Okay Part Two, Jonja Part Two, and Jesus Lord Part Two. So it just has like Part Two of albums with like other people being featured in the songs.
Yeah.
So and it's like it's like who cares? Like whatever, The Keep My Spirit Alive Part Two has a chorus that instead of being sung by Kanye, is sung by a guy named Casey, and he's really great. I really love the version of that album. And then in the deluxe version of this album, you have songs like Life of the Party with Android 3000, which is an insanely good song. Like, I don't know if you haven't listened to that, Android 3000. Have you
Mm-mm.
listened to that? You haven't listened to Life of the Party? Dude, listen to Life of the Party. Life of the Party is insane. Insane album. Like, insane song. It's only in the deluxe version. It's song number 4 in the deluxe version. Insane song. Incredible, like, feature from Android 3000. Incredible, again, fucking soul sample in this track, and incredible DMX sample in this song. Dude, listen to this thing. I mean, this song is something else. And I remember
Yeah, I
that.
gotta listen to Donda. Like I've never given Donda a proper listen, honestly.
Well, did you heard my feelings about it? You heard the songs I don't like, and you heard that basically I like everything else. I really dig this
Yeah.
album. But also from the deluxe, you also have a song by the name of "Up from the Ashes," where he's just singing, "Up from the Ashes," and that song is pretty good. And then "Never Abandon Your Family" is almost unlistenable in how personal it is. And I'm not saying that in a bad way, like at all. I'm just saying that it's just like it's a really great song, but it's just you just hear him saying like I'm losing my family. And even though it's like over beautiful production and he's really heartful about it, you're like, oh my god, like this sounds like you actually are losing your family. And if you know what was happening to this guy at the time, he was losing his family,
Yeah.
and it just it's yeah. So listen to Donda. I think it's great. I would give this album an 8 out of 10. It's like a late career peak for him. Um, this year we got Vultures with Ty Dolla $ign. It's officially not a Kanye album. It's a fucking Kanye and Ty Dolla
Y
album.
Dollar Sign.
Yeah, it's a White Dollar Sign album. I'm gonna be really brief about this album to kind of close out this whole Kanye retrospective. Because I've been
Yeah, I didn't care for Vultures.
yeah, because I've just
That's my review of
yeah,
it.
no, exactly. Because I've been yapping about this too much. Vultures came after a lot of Kanye. Vultures came after Kanye's downfall as a public figure. The things he said after the fact, did after the fact, were, I mean, on I'm not even going to mention them, but he fell out of the public grace. Everybody
Yeah.
wanted this album from him. People were expecting it. There was a lot of hype around it. It came out independent. Obviously, no label was to be associated with Kanye.
Yeah.
It came out independent. It went number one. It broke records for independent records or independent albums. I think it's the first independent album to go number one. Maybe, I don't know. Don't quote me on that. But I think it was the one who sold the most. It had mixed reception where a lot of people were hating on it, obviously because of the person who made it, Kanye West, and then a lot of people liked it, and a lot of people just had mixed feelings about it. Initially, when I heard this, I had like a more positive like take on it. Now, after hearing it again, I think it's Kanye's worst album, bar none. His worst album. This is actually a bad album. Like, this is actually
Yeah.
bad. Like Jesus is King is just like mediocre. This is a bad album. This is a bad album. He ruins Back to Me, even though fucking Ty Dolla and Freddie Gibbs did great in this song. He ruins this song with the
Oh,
whole like
that song's
he
horrendous.
ruins the worst thing about every single song in this album is Kanye and not anybody else.
Yeah.
Ty
Yeah.
Dolla $ign actually carries a lot of the songs. What I do have to say is that Stars, which is the first song, I think it's a really good intro. I like Hood Rat. Other people don't like Hood Rat. I really actually do like that song. Back to Me is good except for Kanye. If there was a version of this song without him that was like in streaming services, I would listen to that over this.
Yeah.
Do It with YG and Nipsey Hussle is great. Paperwork with Quab was horrible, but Burn is great. And then from Fuck Some to Vultures to Carnival, they're all horrible songs. All of them.
Yeah.
All of them are horrible songs. And then Beg for Forgiveness and Problematic are okay. And then King is okay. So basically, you have a lot of really bad, really horrible music mixed with some good songs here and there. And then mixed with almost all the good songs having awkward Kanye performances or bars.
Yeah.
The album just kind of the album doesn't hold together. The production is pretty bad in a lot of the songs. The mixing is pretty bad in a lot of the songs. And a lot of those songs, like I said, are just bad because Kanye is in them, and Kanye is terrible in them. Yeah, I don't know. If he had ended his career on Donda, that would have been a good place to end your career at. But
Yeah.
this album is ass, and it's ass because of Kanye. And who knows if his career has another peak after Donda. I don't know. If it continues the way that it has gone, I doubt it, honestly. But
Yeah.
for everybody who listened to this whole thing, I thank you. I know I rambled a shit ton. I put this together as a whole thing.
Yeah, man.
That's the kind of retrospective. That's it. I don't have anything else to add to this whole thing.
This feels good, dude. We got the full retrospective. Yeah, we got to string those together.
I'll string those together.
I definitely want to make some more like compilations of us covering, the same subjects.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like a compilation of different topics that we cover, different aspects of on different episodes. I think would be kind of a cool kind of bonus for the channel.
Yeah.
But we got some clips coming out. I guess by the time this episode goes up, they will already be out.
Yeah.
So keep an eye out for those. It's going to be a clip where from the Halloween special last year where we talk about the film Hellraiser. I kind of go into why that's my favorite horror film of all time. And then there's a clip from last year as well. Last season, it's the School Stories Part 2, where we discuss schoolyard scraps, bully stories, and shitting through sunroofs. Neither of us did that, but
it's part of
someone
that.
in school did that. Yeah. And then I'm trying to. I think there's another clip from I think the dream scenario episode that I was going to upload too, but so that'll probably be up as well by the time this comes out. And then I guess a little more housekeeping, just a heads up. We'll keep giving you guys heads up in case this is missed, but we generally do 2 breaks during the year. We do a break during December for the holidays.
Mm-hmm.
We'll do like last season we did a Christmas special, and then we were out for December and a good chunk of January.
Mm-hmm.
And then July we'll also usually take a break. Depending on how that lines up with your move too, that might actually happen a little earlier or a tad bit later, maybe, depending on what timing's like. But it'll probably be, it seems like it'll probably be July that we'll take a month off. So,
but when that happens, rather, we'll have some clips coming out for you guys during the meantime.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we try to keep you guys, satiated with clips during the off season. Anyway, so during the breaks, the mid-season breaks and the between season break. But yeah, that's just a little bit of housekeeping. But yeah, man. Dude, Vultures, I remember just when that came out, like a day or two after it came out, I was at the gym and I was like, I got on the treadmill and was just like listening to it, and I was like, this is so fucking bad. Yeah. I was like, I can't do, like, dude, what I really was just like had lost hope, was the song with Freddie Gibbs on it, where I was just like, oh my god, this is so bad.
Which again,
like, why does Kanye keep saying this about
because that was
bad bitches falling out of the sky?
That was like the obligatory. That was the obligatory, like, church closed on Sundays, you wear Chick-fil-A song. It's like the obligatory, like, I'm going to say something that's really bad and see if it sticks, and it didn't stick.
It's just stupid. Ugh, it was just like cringy, man. Ugh,
he ruined that song.
Yeah, terrible. But yeah, well, awesome. That's the Kanye retrospective.
That's the Kanye retrospective, everybody. That's it.
I know I enjoyed it. I enjoyed talking about some great Kanye music. I didn't have much to say on this section because
Late
I don't
career
remember
albums.
Jesus.
Yeah.
I don't remember Jesus is King at all, really. And I haven't listened to Donda top to bottom. I've listened to songs off of there like Moon and JL, and
Mhm.
but I need to give Donda a proper listen for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, I guess I'll get into my recap and
Yeah,
then we'll
dude.
go into the film of the week.
Thank you for letting me ramble
Um,
about all that shit. It took an hour of this podcast rambling about Kanye.
it's good you were brief on the other stuff.
That's why, dude. That's why I was like, I got to get through this. I gotta go fast.
There we go, man. Awesome. Well, hey, we did it, dude. All right, so we'll do some film stuff first here since this is film tangents. So yeah, movies that I watched this over the past couple weeks. I rewatched Mother's Day. My mom always wants to watch Terms of Endearment.
That's right.
The
That's right.
James L. Brooks movie. Yeah, so that's kind of become a Mother's Day tradition that we'll watch that. It definitely fits it's like my mom, one of her favorite movies, and also it fits the Mother's Day
It does, yeah.
holiday too, just for the subject matter. It's about the dynamic between a mom and a daughter. But yeah, that movie gets better every time I watch it. I actually upped my rating to a 9.
Wow.
I won't spoil anything, but I mean the final act is brutal in terms of like emotion. This is a movie where like every time I watch it, once you get to that third act, I'm like, I think I might actually cry this time. Like it's like it is gut wrenchingly heartbreaking, the third act of this movie. So yeah, but it's a fun, it's a funny movie, and it's very true to life. Like James L. Brooks, everybody knows him from The Simpsons. You'll probably obviously everyone knows The Simpsons, but maybe you've seen As Good as It Gets. He did Broadcast News, which I didn't like as much. I really like As Good as It Gets, and then Terms of Endearment is fantastic too. And it's a lot like a lot like The Simpsons in the sense that like his you can kind of see his stamp on all of his work, in the sense that he's really good about doing comedy that also has like a ton of heart in it, and just feels very real and true to life. In Terms of Endearment, like the scenes feel very real, true to life, and they're funny, but it's not the kind of comedy that's just going for like quick, easy jokes. It's very just grounded and story driven, and yeah, like I said, you'll laugh and have some fun and go through the ups and downs during those first 2 acts, and then the third act you're probably gonna cry. But yeah, so great movie there. And then I watched one of the Oscar nominees this year. I don't remember if it won anything, but I watched American Fiction.
That's right. I don't think it won Best Screenplay, man. I'm pretty sure. Oh
Did
no,
it?
no, no, no.
Can't
Actually,
remember.
no. I don't
I
think
don't
it
think
did.
so.
I don't think it did. We covered
I don't
this.
think it.
We covered this, and I don't remember.
Yeah, American Fiction Oscars. It looks like it. Yeah, no, it won Best
Okay,
Adapted
good. Okay, so
Screenplay.
I got that right. Okay.
Yeah. Yep. So yeah, I thought American Fiction was good. I gave it a 7 out of 10 overall. Yeah, I thought it was solid. It was really fucking. It was really funny. And had a lot of interesting things to say about just sort of the Black experience, and the experience of being a Black artist, a Black writer, how the public views Black storytelling, I guess. Stories from Black writers, Black authors. I guess it'll make more sense if I kind of give the synopsis. Basically, the synopsis is Thelonious Monk Ellison's writing career has stalled because his work isn't deemed quote unquote Black enough. Monk, a writer and English professor, writes a satirical novel under a pseudonym, aiming to expose the publishing world's hypocrisies. The book's immediate success forces him to get deeper enmeshed in his assumed identity and challenges his closely held worldviews. So yeah, a lot of interesting things to say. The kind of the gripe I had with this movie was there were a lot of subplots apart from sort of the main plot, which is that book that he publishes and him kind of going under this pseudonym. And his pseudonym, he builds a character around his pseudonym who is an ex-convict who's actually wanted by the law currently and is like a fugitive at the moment, and is like, really hood and, tough guy, but there's a lot of the subplots sort of weirdly become like the main plot, and we don't actually spend as much time as I wanted to on that sort of main plot of the book and the implications of that. So that was kind of what dragged it down for me, because I thought it was really interesting. Mm-hmm. A lot of the stuff that the movie was saying, fascinating stuff. That was unfortunately dragged down for me for just a bit too much time spent on the subplots, I think. But maybe I missed something, or maybe this would, on another viewing would improve for me, and maybe would click for me more. But right now it's 7 out of 10.
Okay.
Really good.
I want to check that movie out. I want to.
Yeah. I honestly, though, I thought, again, that main plot was fantastic. And I thought a lot of the stuff they were saying, again, just about just kind of the Black experience and the experience of being a Black writer and marketing yourself as a Black writer. Like there's a scene where he's in a bookstore and he's looking for his own books, and he kind of asks it's in a Barnes and Noble actually, and he asks the one of the clerks, like, hey, where is, he pretends that he's just a random guy, and he's like, where is I already forget what his name was, but his name, basically his author name, and he's pretending to just be someone else. And the guy is like, yeah, right over here, and it's under like Black history or something, but it's like not Black history. It's just a novel that he wrote, but he's a Black author, so that gives you an idea of kind of the themes they're exploring in this. And I thought a lot of the themes they were exploring were very valid. Again, just as a white guy, obviously I can't speak to it or claim to relate to it, but again, just as a very progressive person, as an ally, like I want to help. I want to not make the mistakes that a lot of the other characters make in this movie, and their sort of I guess viewing of Black storytellers. So again, that's what I took away from this movie, is I want to help. I want to help move forward these move these things forward, move the needle, so to speak, on these things. But anyway, moving on here, I watched this past weekend. I had the house to myself Friday night, so I was like, hey, I'm going to throw on a scary movie by myself in the dark. So I threw on No One Will Save You, which is that. Yeah, right. I'm so badass. So I threw on No One Will Save You. Did you hear about this movie? It's the home invasion with the aliens.
Yeah, I have.
Kind of shitty, dude.
Really?
I thought, yeah, it got like rave reviews from critics. I think it did get like mixed audience reviews, and I'm gonna have to side with the audience on this one. Let me see. It got 82% certified fresh, Rotten Tomatoes. Audience gave it 56. That's about right. I thought the first act of this movie was really strong and pretty creepy, actually. And it was ramping me up. Like, I was like, oh boy, like, here we go. And it loses steam, man, by the time we get into the second act, and it just kind of really goes downhill. I gave it a 4 out of 10. So,
Wow.
yeah, man, it loses steam. And something that I can't get through my head to this day is in Western horror cinema, the use of CGI and showing the monsters. How many times, how many examples, dude, it's been 20, 30 years now of shitty CGI in horror films. How many more examples do we need before? I mean, and the problem is like, now that it's been 30 years of, lots and lots of horror movies with shitty CGI that ruin them, it's like the people who made this movie, they know this. This is a problem. And it's like, I kind of wondered while I was watching the movie, I'm like, is this an issue with the production where it's like, hey, we have this, they gave us a sizable budget for the CGI and we want to use all of it for the CGI. So use it. Is that the problem? You know what I mean? Like because that's, at this point, I can't think of what else. Because I'm just sitting there thinking like, dude, this is going to be way scarier if you don't show me the monster, right, and you just keep it in the shadows, and you don't have these CGI creatures running about in like well lit circumstances. You know what I mean? Like, so again, I wonder, like, is that something with the production where it's like, we want to use the budget. We want to use the budget that we were given for the CGI. Use it. Mm-hmm. I guess. I don't know. Am I crazy there? I feel like I'm onto something with that. But yeah. So
no, I agree. I agree with you completely, dude.
Pretty disappointed. Kind of disappointed. I didn't really think much of this movie. Well, like when I saw the trailer last year for the first time, I thought the idea was really stupid. Like, I was like, home invasion with aliens, it's kind of dumb.
Yeah.
But then when I saw the rave reviews from critics, I was like, maybe not rave reviews, but fresh reviews. I was like, okay,
maybe there's something here.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe there's something here. No, this was not
there's
it.
There's nothing.
No. Just skip it. And then also,
I want to check it out, dude, just out of sheer curiosity.
Yeah, it's not good. It's a lot like it's like a shittier version of A Quiet Place. Actually, it's similar. But I thought A Quiet Place was actually like pretty well done. Like, it's a solid 6 out of 10 to me. Like a 3 out of 5 star movie, where this was shitty. And the CGI those weren't the only problems though. Like I said, the story loses steam in Act 2, and then Act 3, it becomes kind of nonsensical. Like, they didn't land the ending as far as like theme goes, mm-hmm, and just what it was trying to say. It's just kind of like, what are you trying to say here? This is weird.
Right.
There is, I would say, a strong part of the movie that kind of saved it a little bit from a, like a 2 or 3 out of 10 for me was, I don't know about a 2, but maybe a 3. There was a solid sort of mystery, mm-hmm, that you're kind of waiting to see, because like it's basically the character wound. The character has some sort of tragic backstory, and she's shunned by this town that she's in. Okay. And even people like will call her house and be like, "Fuck you, you're a bitch," die. And it's like, whoa, what'd she do?
It's like the mystery of why that was.
Exactly. So they, that's strong. Like, that keeps you invested, which again, like, I guess it's a good kind of piece of writing advice. Like, I think that's like one of our producing teachers in college told us that story about Mad Men, where one of the producers had a note like, give Don Draper, he has to have a secret, mm-hmm, and that was like something strong. So
right, because you just have such a driving curiosity. It's like,
exactly.
What is
so
that?
No matter how, exactly. So you're gonna hook an audience, like, if you have something like that, even if the movie's kind of shitty. I was like, well, I'm I'm gonna finish this. Like, not only because I just already sat down and I'm already this far, but also because I want to know what happened. Right. So that was pretty strong. So, but overall, just not it, man. And then, I watched the miniseries, Baby Reindeer. Did you hear about that?
I've never heard about that. I have no idea what that is.
Okay. It just came out. It's a British miniseries, but the plot is when a struggling comedian shows one act of kindness to a vulnerable woman, it sparks a suffocating obsession, which threatens to wreck both their lives. Essentially, he has like a female stalker, and it's based on a true story. He actually, like the guy who made this, it's based on his actual experiences. These are real people, and the stalker that it's based on is actually looking to take legal action.
Really? This sounds like that. What is that mystery, that Stephen King thing?
It's very similar, actually. Like, she's similar in appearance to Annie Wilkes in Misery. She's similar in appearance to her, and a lot of the mannerisms and behavior, like, that was 100% influence.
Jessica Gunning, I see.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I thought it was solid. Like, I gave it a 7 out of 10. There were some solid, like, spy versus spy kind of things, and I think that's one of those plots, like a stalker, that's always going to be kind of juicy, that people are always going to be a sucker for. I'm certainly going to be a sucker for that kind of thing. Like, I love what's the Scorsese movie, Cape Fear?
Yeah.
I love that movie. Like,
Cape Fear.
Dude, it's so good. I probably should pick that, like, for an episode this year, because I'm actually wanting to watch that again. But yeah, like, I'm a sucker for a good stalker story. Like, that always that'll always be intriguing. So there's a lot of good stuff with that. There was some great there's some heavy shit in this too, man. Like, there was an episode in midway through the series that I think it's 7 episodes, and I want to say around episode 4 or 5, where we get a backstory on the character from where he was a few years prior, and it deals with some heavy themes of sexual abuse, and the way they did it felt so real. The way they built it up and showed kind of like the whole process of, like, because the guy wants to be a comedian and a writer, and all of a sudden this, successful writer kind of takes a liking to him, and is like, oh, why don't you come over to my apartment, and they do drugs together, and it builds it up to where you're like, oh my God. And that episode really got under my skin. Like, that was one of the most disturbing depictions of sexual abuse I've ever seen in cinema. I mean, that was rough, dude. I was very uncomfortable after watching that. I would say, yeah, I mean, it kind of ends a bit it doesn't quite stick the landing for me in terms of how the miniseries ends. I understand it's because it's based on a true story, and if you're gonna stay true to life, sometimes life doesn't always have like a big climax. A lot of times life is kind of anticlimactic, so there's some limitations there. So overall, 7 out of 10. I thought there was some powerful stuff in this. I'm teetering toward an 8, actually, as I'm thinking about it again, because there was some powerful shit in this miniseries.
Yeah.
It goes in some very unexpected directions.
And it's on Netflix, right?
Yep, okay. It's on Netflix. And that's it for. I finished the first season of Fallout.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that. I was wondering whether you finished that or not, because I don't think you had last time.
That was excellent. Yeah, really good. Kind of somewhat predictable in terms of like where the story's going, but even within that predictability, there are some twists and turns that I didn't quite see coming. So Um, overall, like really solid. And being somewhat predictable isn't always bad, because a lot of times that just means the story is delivering on its promises,
Right,
which
right.
I
It's
think,
not pulling a Game of
which
Thrones season 8 or whatever.
right, right, exactly. Like that, always I would say like really that's one of the big main functions of plot in the story is to deliver, make promises, and please deliver on them. Please deliver on the promises.
Mm.
So 100% delivers on those promises and more. Overall, just like really just solid. Like they got everything down. Like there's a very clear philosophical conflict there. The characters are very fleshed out, and it's very clear where each of them stand on the philosophical conflict, and kind of what their arcs are going to be. But they do go in some unexpected directions for
Mhm.
me. And yeah, man, overall very solid. I'm really looking forward to the next season,
That's
which
one
will
that
probably be a while. But
that's one what I want to check out. I want to put that in my to watch list of TV shows that I will not watch.
yeah, I'm telling you, man, you gotta get over that, bro. There's some great television out
Look,
there. I mean,
the
dude, the
number
worst that could
one.
happen, if you don't like it, just don't.
Yeah,
Like if you get a few episodes into something, just stop
I
watching
feel
it,
like the
man.
number one for
Just put it in
me.
the
Oh, dude,
DNF, the
I
did
know,
not finish
I
pile.
know that because that's what happened with me in like Beef, where I was just like, enough of this.
Yeah.
But if out of all the recommendations that I've gotten from you, Hannibal is still number one. That I'm like, if I ever do start doing this, then I should start here.
Yeah.
And True Detective.
I was rewatching like some clips from Hannibal the other day, and I was like, man, Edward has got to get on this, man.
Yeah, I
Like
know. That's the one
Hannibal's,
I feel that I'm missing out with that show.
oh, it's so good, dude. It's only 3 seasons too, man. I mean, oh man, it's so good. Um, it literally is just like a shade below Breaking
Hmm.
Bad and Better Call Saul, which are like
Hmm.
peak media for me. The like
Hmm.
Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad are the greatest, in my opinion, pieces of media ever made.
Hmm.
And Hannibal is like a shade below those. The rewatchability factor of that show is insane, man. It's so good. It's one of the most insightful shows of all time, and um, there's a real sense of, I've never really seen anything like this, where there's a real sense of philosophical horror in that show,
Hmm.
where you really just question human nature as a whole, and you're like, fuck, are we all just like,
Hmm.
are we all just wired to kill? Like, you
Yeah.
know what I mean? It's just like, fuck, dude. Like, and is there really a difference between like God and the devil?
Hmm.
It's incredible. Anyway, off my soapbox on that. I could go on about
Well,
Hannibal
that
forever.
because of you going off about Hannibal is why I'm like, shit, I need to check this show out.
Oh, yeah, it's Kubrickian,
Yeah,
dude. It's Kubrickian,
I'm
which is one of
excited for it.
it's really the only thing I can think of that I can really say is like legit Kubrickian in my
Yeah.
opinion.
Mhm.
But yeah, like whenever you do end up watching that show, we're gonna
Oh,
have to
dude, we'll
devote
talk
an
about it for
episode
sure.
to
Yeah,
it.
we'll dedicate
Oh
time
yeah,
to it.
we're gonna have to dedicate a whole episode probably to a retrospective. And then I am actually almost finished. I have like a couple chapters left of a novel that I'm reading called The Blacktongue Thief,
Hmm.
by Christopher Ballman, I think is how you say his name. He wrote the beloved horror fantasy novel called Between Two Fires, which is like basically medieval period piece horror fantasy. And I thought the novel was okay, um, very well written, but I thought that it just kind of lacked in terms of, I don't know, just some excitement. It didn't really have like a proper villain. It had like antagonistic forces, but it didn't have a proper villain, which I thought was disappointing. And overall, I do see why people like it, and it gets mentioned. It's like Reddit's favorite horror novel, pretty much. Like
And Black
every
Tongue is
Reddit
just one
thread.
word, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
yep, the Blacktongue Thief. This is more just straight up fantasy. There's not really horror in this. There's some horrifying stuff, as with all fantasy, but it's more just straightforward medieval fantasy. But yeah, it's really good. It just concerns basically this guy who's a part of it's in a medieval high fantasy setting. This character is the main character is a thief. He's part of a guild of thieves, and he owes them like a debt from being in thieving school. It's kind of like a grift that they do where they put all their students in great debt, and then they have to pay it off, under threat of death, essentially.
It's the U.S.
And
government.
exactly, yeah. So it's kind of he gets kind of swept up in this adventure, and he kind of there's kind of a conflict of like an internal conflict of like, well, do I kind of pay off my debts here, or do I, step up to this greater cause? I would say the conflict's not really that internal conflict isn't executed the best. I think the author could have done better with making that conflict more clear and cementing that.
Mm-hmm.
Overall, like a pretty good novel, but I will say, like, the first act, I was kind of wondering if this was going to be a did not finish, like I had to set this one down. Yeah, but it picked up. So yeah, I'm almost finished with it. There's like some shit goes down in the climax that really had me like, oh shit, like I'm sad that happened, and I'm sure the ending's probably going to be pretty good. Like, I think one of the best parts of his other novel, Between Two Fires, was the ending, which was very powerful. So yeah, really well written, I gotta say. I mean, this writer, like, just in terms of prose and like how he describes things and stuff, just the actual writing, on a technical level, like really solid. Like, he sounds like a veteran, even though he's only written like a handful of books. But so I'm looking forward to finishing that. We should probably punt the Death Grips discography to next week.
Yeah, because I feel like that's gonna take as long as the Kanye retrospective did.
Yeah. We'll do the Death Grips retrospective on another episode.
Everybody, look forward to that. We're excited to talk about that.
Yeah. Oh man, I'm sad we got to punt that, but we got to.
Yeah.
But that leads us to the final item, which is Chief Keef's new album.
Yeah.
Almighty So 2. This is a follow-up to probably his most influential.
Almighty So.
No, scratch that. Definitely his most influential project, Almighty So, from 2013, which at the time was shit on, along with Bang 2, which he released those two mixtapes back to back.
Yeah.
Which they were some of the earliest sort of full mumble rap projects. So we had heard like mumble rap songs had been around from the likes of Lil Wayne and Future and Soulja Boy before these, but these were really the first kind of mumble rap, like full length mumble rap projects.
Yeah.
So it was new at the time and people didn't get it. Like, people were like, what is this? It's like just this leaned out warbling through auto tune over these like leaned out kind of colorful beats and stuff, cartoonish ad libs, and people didn't get it. And Almighty So, though, definitely the more hi-fi of the two. I probably listened to more songs off of Bang 2, but Almighty So was definitely more like the production value was better on that one. But it was very interesting at the time because he basically got in he didn't do anything with Young Chop on either of these projects.
Young Chop on the beat.
Right. That was like his main collaborator. And then he just didn't do, and people at the time were like, where the hell's Young Chop? Like that was his main collaborator and he's not here. But Chief Keef at the time, he wanted to experiment. And plus, he was on a lot of drugs at the time. He went on to say, like, I was on a lot of lean at the time. And he, through experimentation and, again, a lot of drugs.
A lot of drugs.
Interesting stuff. Yeah. And Almighty So, the first Almighty So project, was very interesting because you had a lot of these very cloud rap kind of beats that he was rapping, kind of mumbled drill rap over. So really interesting stuff. And so this Almighty So 2 coming out 10 years later, 10 and a half years later, is a sequel in name only. It sounds nothing like that first project.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, what was your take on Almighty So 2?
Well, it was interesting because I remember when I listened to this album, I didn't make it all the way through because I listened to Almighty Intro, Nef Nem, Treat Myself, and then Jesus Kid, which I really like Jesus Kid, and I really like the song Jesus with Lil Nar.
Yeah.
Yep. But then I didn't listen to the rest of it until a couple of days later. So it's taken me a little bit to get to this album like fully. But then I went back to the album, re-listened to Jesus, started back from like Jesus, then Two Trim, Runner, Band Up, Grape Trees, 1, 2, 3. So I was just kind of making my way, which is funny because 1, 2, 3 credits Paul McCartney. And John Lennon, they have, because of the sample, they have a fucking credit on 1, 2, 3. But I was just kind of building my way through the album, just listening to what I could, going back in, back out. And so eventually, I finished the album, got through Drifting Away, Never Fly Here, Prince Charming, Believe, Tony Montana, Flow, and I'm trying to sleep. And then went back to the beginning with Almighty So. What I have to say for this album is, for me, I found it just like a really enjoyable experience. Skips here and there, because I was never like super excited to listen back to Nef Nem with G Herbo. Honestly, I do like this song, but I was never like super excited to go back to it, and neither was I super excited to go back to Treat Myself. I think
Treat Myself's the worst.
Yeah, Treat Myself is not very good. I do like Nef Nem, but I just don't love Nef Nem. I think Jesus with Lil Nar is like a big standout. And I really like Two Trim, and I really like Runner. Especially I like Two Trim and Runner because of like him referencing like that he was like late with the album. People have been waiting for this album. I love how like self-referential the album is, with just people with like the skits too, of being like, man, we've been waiting for the album, like like, keep pushing it back. What's going on? Like I love how he kind of plays with that and brings that into the album. I honestly liked Grape Trees with Sexy Red. I liked Grape Trees with Sexy Red. Like, what can I say? I thought what she brought to the song I thought was fun, and I really enjoyed it. I really liked 1, 2, 3 too. I had a good time with this album, man. That's really all. That's really like the I liked the Kanye name drops. Kanye ass beat. I love how he went about the album, how much fun he had with the album, how clear it was, like how he was sweating over the production and just trying to make it like the most interesting, fun, captivating just production that he could get together. And just also I commend him for switching up his flow and shit, like Tony Montana flow and stuff like that, where he just kind of switched it up, was like, I'm gonna do something different out the box, even if I don't think it worked all of the time. And even though I thought that sometimes I was still kind of like wishing that in terms of like his lyrical quality of the music, like, because it's like you said to me, like he really was like, this was like his bag, like I'm gonna be a rap album. And I enjoyed that. Although sometimes lyrically I felt a little bit underwhelmed.
Same here, yeah.
I still thought that he came through with like a pretty good album. Like, I'm adding songs to this for my playlist. I'm coming back to the songs and I'm listening to the songs and going back to the album. I've listened to the album about 3 or 4 times in the week and a half that's been out. 2 weeks, honestly. I've enjoyed it. I've had a lot of fun. That's really like most of what I can say about it. It's had a lot of positive critical reception. Surprisingly, Pitchfork gave it an 8.4 and named it Best New Music. Fantano gave it a 7 out of 10, which is a good review for him too.
Did you watch the Fantano review?
I did not watch Fantano review. I haven't seen it yet.
I watched the review. Fantano actually, like, I'm kind of almost like word for word on Fantano's review. I was like, yeah, pretty much in agreement. He didn't like Jesus, which I really disagree with.
Yeah.
But I disagreed with him here and there, but I think overall, I think Fantano's thoughts are my thoughts.
I see.
Yeah,
because I haven't listened to it. I know that he gave it a 7 because people posted like the screenshot on social media. People were going crazy about it. But yeah, I enjoyed the album. I thought it was pretty good. I don't know if I like it more than 4Nem, honestly. But I do think I think it's solid. I think he put a solid record out.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, so I think 4Nem plays to his strengths more. I would say like this album, it's not what I listen to Chief Keef for.
Right.
As like a big, again, Chief Keef isn't, for those who don't know by now, Chief Keef is in my top 5 artists. I think he's a great artist. I think he's a visionary in terms of like just the way rap sounds. Without Chief Keef,
Mm.
how different would rap sound now without Chief Keef? Who knows, man? I mean, it's like without Chief Keef, there would have been a real butterfly effect with
Right.
Timeline.
Right.
We'd be in a
100%.
way different spot with rap. Rap
100%.
would sound way different, and but it's because he keeps, um, I lost the word I was looking for. Just elevating,
Hmm. Hmm.
elevating his sound. He keeps experimenting on each project, and this one I felt like was less of a risky project for him.
Hmm.
This
For
felt a
sure.
lot like just kind of like a Meek Mill album almost,
Hmm.
or
Hmm. I can see that.
like that. That's kind of what I was like trying to figure out, like what's the best comparison here, and that's kind of the comparison I came up with. It's like a
That's a
very
decent comparison.
like yeah, it felt like a very straight up just
Hmm.
rappers rap album
Hmm. Hmm.
to me. Um yeah, like and that's my thing with Chief Keef. Like what I listen to Chief Keef for is like again experimental um production, experimental
Right. And
flows,
this came
with
through.
the auto tune
Yeah.
like
Yeah. And this really came about as just being like a really good rap album, but not like
yeah,
beyond that, for sure.
exactly. This
Yeah.
was very like straight down the
That was my
middle
impression. That was my
rap album.
impression of it too.
Yeah, which I respect. Like I like variety in everything, right? And like even like I didn't, we didn't like Kid Cudi's. You and I kind of agreed on Insano, at
Yeah.
least disc one.
Yeah. I still haven't listened to this
Where
too, sadly.
yeah, like disc one of Insano, Kid Cudi's album, like I remember realizing within the first 2 tracks, I was like, okay, this is gonna be like a rap album.
Mhm.
And I was like, okay, I'm open to it. It's not what I listen to Kid Cudi for, but I'm open to it, right? And same with this one. And yeah, I thought overall, like Almighty So 2, I would give it, yeah, 7 out of 10, like same as Fantano did. I don't think he plays to his strengths very much on this album. Is kind of my problem. Like if you, that's kind of what dragged it down a little bit for me. Like if you listen um, to this day, I think his one of his unsung albums is Dedication from
Mhm.
2017. Like to me, that's an essential Chief Keef album. Like if I were in charge of Apple Music, because right now if you go to Chief Keef's page on Apple Music
Yeah.
and it go to Essential
Only.
Album,
Yeah. Only one
all
of
it
them
is
has.
Finally Rich.
Yeah. Finally, Rich is the only one.
Yeah, if I were in charge of Apple Music, I'd keep that one. That's fine. Like that was his breakout album.
That's the one I've
That's
listened
essential
to.
Keef listening.
Yeah.
Right. That's essential Keef listening. But I would also put in there Dedication, and I would probably put Almighty So 1 in there
Mhm.
because of how influential it was. I would say those three would be the essential albums for Chief Keef. Dedication is really underrated, even among Chief Keef's fandom. Like every ranking video I've seen of Chief Keef's projects, Dedication is always like in the mid tier somewhere, in like the mid range. Like if it's like a top, I don't know how many albums Keef has at this and mixtapes he has at this point, but if it's like a top 22 or something, right? Like Dedication will be somewhere around 13, number 13 that they'll rank it at.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's crazy to me. That's an incredibly polished album. I think it was like his fourth like album, right? So not including mixtapes, but that one was meant to be like an album.
Yeah.
Um and if you go listen to Dedication, what I always loved about that project, I would say the best example of what I'm talking about is probably on the song Less Speed off of Dedication,
Mhm.
where he really plays, but on the whole project, but Less Speed is probably the best example of it, the most like, standout example of it, where he plays with flow. in a very interesting way. And he does that a lot on the 2017 project as well, that came out January 1st of 2017, hence the title. Where he plays with flow very interestingly, where he does sort of like a 50 Cent like sing rap hybrid thing, where it's like he's somewhat rapping and somewhat singing at the same time. And he creates a cadence that sort of matches up with the synth with like one piece of the production, and he'll match his cadence to that one piece of the production. It creates a really interesting flow. And when I remember when Dedication first came out, and when I heard that stuff, I was like, this is why I like him, man. Because he's does interesting shit like that. Those are his strengths. And he doesn't really do much like that on this album. No. It's very straightforward, just bars.
Yeah, it does strike me that way, because I think you put it like really well, because it really does strike me as like, even like the Tyler the Creator album, like that rap album where it's like, I'm gonna show that I can make a good rap album, and then I'm gonna peace out and then probably do my stuff again, which is the hope that I have.
Right, exactly. But yeah, for what I'm talking about, anyone who wants to know what I'm talking about, if you can't quite picture what I'm saying with him playing with flow and matching it up to a section of the production, listen to Less Speed off of Dedication. That's the best example of it. But yeah, like, just to keep it real brief, I mean, Neff Nem I really like. I love that like piano in there. Jesus is probably the one I've listened to the most off of it. Yeah. Off of this album.
I think Jesus and Two Trim and Runner are the ones I've listened to the most. And then 1, 2, 3.
Gotcha. I need to listen to Two Trim again. I can't even like picture that one right now. Let's see. Yeah, Runner is probably the second most that I've listened to. Banded Up I really like.
I like Banded Up.
Featuring Tierra Whack, who is not whack. Her verse was awesome.
She just released a new album too recently.
She was great.
Yeah, no, she was great.
And apparently, I haven't like seen the screenshots or anything, but apparently the story of that song is that Chief Keef DM'd her and was like, it would be super hilarious if you out-rapped me on my own album. And she did on that song. Like, damn, dude. By the way, too, what he does with his voice, he almost does like a 6ix9ine voice on this album on certain songs where he's like just screaming.
He is. Yeah.
But it works. Like it's really aggressive, man. Like I was working out yesterday listening to some of these songs, and I was like, "Fuck yeah!" But yeah, Grape Trees is fun. 1, 2, 3, great sample. Like the sampling on this album and the production, impeccable.
Yeah, he's in his bag. I mean, it's really good.
He produced every song on this except for like maybe one, I think. Yeah. I don't know which one that is, but he produced every song on this album with the exception of one. Fantastic production, which he's been producing for a long time now.
I can tell you which song he did not produce. Let me see. The first one. The intro. That's the only thing he didn't produce. This was just the intro.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Drifting Away is okay. Never Fly Here is whatever. Prince Charming's all right. Believe, that is one of the most interesting beats I've heard in a long time. On Believe, that's like the more chilled out, introspective song. That beat is that is an earworm.
No, let me correct myself. Actually, he produced every song in this album.
Really?
Yeah, everyone. Every single song he has production credit for.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Maybe I was thinking. It says all songs produced by Chief Keef. Let me see.
Oh, I think there was a song on this that he took off of it. Rack Stuffed in the Couch. He took off of the album, and I think he did not produce that one.
No, he did not produce Tony Montana Flow.
Oh, he didn't produce Tony Montana Flow?
No, it was Akachi and producer Kyle. He doesn't have a production credit on that song.
Oh, interesting. Okay, gotcha. Well, that was the next one. So Tony Montana Flow has been out for like a year and a half. That's a fun song, dude.
That is a fun song.
Like, that's a goofy ass song in a great way. Like, that's almost like a Danny Brown. That's like someone saying to Chief Keef, do a Danny Brown song, but like, Chief Keef style.
Yeah.
Like it's really.
It was so random. I was like, what the hell is this? I got caught off guard by that song.
I just want the blue cheese and 1,000 islands. I ain't generous. I'm not Ellen. But yeah, let's get into the movie of the week, man. We are overtime.
Okay, let's do this. Okay, everybody, the movie of the week for this week is The Samouraï, but actually, let's say it right, is Les Samouraï. It's the French film, neo-noir crime thriller film by Jean-Pierre Melville, starring Alain Delon with his wife, Nathalie Delon, and Cathy Rossier and Franco Pierre. 1974, insanely influential film. I mean, one of the most influential movies of all time. This is the first movie that does exactly what this movie does, with the long takes and the long periods without dialogue sequences, the specific kind of main character that he is. And we've seen a few movies like this. We've seen The Driver in this podcast. We've seen the movie Drive by Nicholas Winding Refn. And one of our seemingly permanently lost episodes, The Killer, is also one of the most recent examples of a movie influenced by this film. All of that being said for the introduction, what did you think about not The Killer, The Samouraï?
Les Samouraï.
Les Samouraï.
Yeah, man. Yeah, like I could definitely see, obviously the influence there is strong. This plot has been recreated so many times since this movie. I mean, it's kind of like the, seems to be the, the prototype for, hitman whose employers are now after him,
right,
trope.
Exactly.
Definitely respect that. Definitely respect like the craft and the filmmaking in this movie. The music was great. I really, I thought the soundtrack, the score, was excellent in this movie. That all being said, I was disappointed by this movie.
Yeah,
man.
Tell me what's going on.
I just
tell me about it. Tell me when did that happen? What happened?
Dude, I just it just didn't do it for me. I found it really boring and just hard to get through, man, to be honest with you. Like I just did not, and I think the main problem for me was like they were trying to do thing where, this noose is, gradually tightening around the character's neck, and I just didn't feel the grip of that noose, and I don't think they really I don't think they tightened that noose quick enough, or tight enough, honestly. Like it just felt like it just didn't feel like enough was happening. It didn't feel like enough things. It didn't feel like the character's house of cards was
crumbling
around him like quickly enough, I guess. It just didn't feel like enough was being thrown at him. It just felt like he had a lot of breathing room. And I don't know, it just felt like he could walk away from his problems in this movie. Like I was like, dude, I don't know, it's like just fucking leave the city or something. I don't know. It just didn't feel like anything was really challenging him to me. Because all like the plots from both the police and the employer were like super drawn out, and they only did a couple of things to like try to thwart him, like they questioned his lover a couple times, they put him in the lineup or whatever. Yeah, I found it hard to get through, to be honest with you. Like I was just kind of like, I was really bored during this. I don't know. Do you disagree?
I disagree. I completely was immersed in this movie. Yeah, no, dude, I disagree completely. Like I that's something that where I had that inclination where I thought to myself, like, I wonder if Jake's gonna like struggle with like getting into, I guess, like the mood of the film. Because somehow, dude, I got into it. I was like, okay, I was like, let's do it. That's like the pacing of the movie like worked completely for me. I was absorbed like in the cinematography and the night sequences. I was like, oh my god, like I really loved like how
I
they
liked those. Yeah.
yeah, I really loved how they got around like how dark it looked and how again like that noir element of the film and all these shadows and all this grain and how they got around like every time he opened the car the light came on and off, obviously like those are practical things, but in the context of it I found it just like so fascinating. I found kind of like him carrying out that hit really interesting, and how they just set everything up like so clearly. It was just masterful. Like it's one of those films where I was like, oh, this is visual storytelling like apex. Like it was Jean Pierre. It was just him like executing mastery of this craft, which I'm always
Mm.
fascinated by. Like for me, like sheer like mastery of filmmaking always like really like kind of like it's always like enough for me. It's always enough for me to be like I'm here,
Yeah,
like I'm not,
yeah.
you're not, and I know that I'm not like I know I'm not dispelling what you said, but for me this is like why the film like worked as well as it did.
Sure, yeah.
Because it functions when I'm just like overwhelmed with like angles and craft and camera moves, and we're going from this room to this room and we're going to follow this entire sequence, and we're going to shoot this way and then zoom in or zoom out and reframe this, like those things I just kind of start just kind of like just my head just starts like spinning and I'm like, oh my god, like this is great. um but on top of that, I loved how Alain Delon played this character, and I thought that he was perfect because he just had this like ghost feeling to him. Like he just felt like this shell of a person who was just
Yeah.
doing these things. um and I was kind of fascinated by his performance and how like pale he was. I found that interesting too.
Yeah.
But I also was fascinated by the police procedural process, how they all had them in that line, asking everybody like, "Is this the man?" And how like the procedural elements of this film, and then from seeing the detective talk to the girl and then go around and talk to all the witnesses again, getting in her like lover, and then talking to him, switching everybody's clothes and being like, "Who's the guy? If you could recognize him, that's the guy right here." Just like seeing the alibi work out, and just seeing the detective get like, his plans get just like thwart, and he just couldn't work it out, But then him just kind of just being like, "I know that fucker is the guy," It's like I know it. And then how they were trying to mess with him, seeing those guys get into his apartment and be like super like careful that nobody saw them, and
Yeah, yeah,
being
yeah.
super sketchy guys,
I
and
liked that scene.
putting in the little thing in his room, and how he knew from the bird that they had been in his house, like all of it, when he went into the bridge to meet the guy to get the money, but it ended up being like a double cross situation. I really enjoyed all of that. It made me think to myself, like, where did this trope start of the like the very kind of like serious, like, you know protagonist guy like healing his own
Stoic.
wounds. Yeah, the very stoic character, just like kind of being like, oh, I'm wounded and I'm going to take care of this myself, kind of thing.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of
um
that's Anton Chigurh.
exactly. I was like, yeah, and
They probably the Coen brothers must have
I
yeah, they
think they
must
took
have
it from here, because then in the
yeah.
Wikipedia page and on the IMDb page, it says that the Coen brothers have been influenced by this film and their films, which I can see that,
Yeah.
because that's what I
Mhm.
thought about. Um, I dug it, dude. I dug the movie. I liked how it ended with just him, like getting shot. Because I think the thing with him is, and funnily enough, the blonde lady that plays his lover, she was his wife at the time, and she kept his last name after they separated. But it's interesting because I guess the crux of the character is just kind of like the movie makes like an appeal to the character's humanity by basically I from my position, I thought that what the implication here for him was the implication for why he didn't bolt is because he had compromised people. He it was like the movie The Killer, where it's like this guy thought himself that he was like this perfect guy, perfect executioner of things, perfect
Yeah.
alibi, and then he was just met with a situation where he failed. Even if things came together for him, he still failed. And I think that's what his character realized at that point in the film, like near the end, he just realized like I fucked up and there's no getting out of this. And it was so fascinating to me because it became clear for him in the train when he realized that random civilians in the train were like tracing him, and he was just trying to get loose from these people, just trying. And tons of people just following, random women, old ladies. Like when he realized, like, oh fuck, like this, like I fucked up. Even if technically I'm not guilty, I'm still guilty. Like the suspicion is on me because, and they said it in the film. The guys, when they were trying to put the hit on him for the other guy to kill him, they said it. They were like, well, the issue that we have right now is that even though he walked, there's no fall guy. And if there's no fall guy, he's still the most suspicious guy, Which I was like, well, it's true.
Yeah.
The issue for him was that there was no fall guy. The other witnesses did not recognize anybody. Nobody, they didn't go like, that's the guy, So there was nobody to fall for this. I was invested, man. I loved the craft of the film. I loved the music. I loved the performances. I liked the way that the movie carried itself narratively throughout. And I was not bored at any second. I thought the movie had like a really great kind of tragic and in a way also like existentialist ending with just him ending alone, and I mean dying. Yeah, and then they looked into his gun and he was like he didn't even have bullets there, like
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah,
He just knew there was no way out.
yeah, because and I think that's also part of the why the film, because the film was called The Samurai, and I think that's also part of why the movie was named that. It's like not only the code of conduct like that this guy has, not only like his motto, but also like the way that he wanted to go out. Because for him, it's like I'm not gonna go out like this. Like I'm not gonna be persecuted. I'm not gonna go out because I'm arrested, and the woman that I love, like, has to give me up because they're putting pressure on her. I'm gonna go out because these guys shoot me. Like this is the way that I'm gonna go out. Like I'm gonna go out by my own terms, which is also how I saw like him doing that. Love the movie, dude. I could rewatch that movie right now. Loved it. I really appreciated that film. I have nothing to say but positives. I have no complaints. I can see that this movie can be slow and dragged out, but I was with it.
Yeah. I didn't feel like because I like a methodical kind of like slow paced film. Like I love The Killer.
Yeah.
And I
thought this was better than The Killer, personally.
Oh man, you're out of your mind.
No,
you're crazy, dude.
Not at all. I rated The Killer an 8. I'm gonna give this movie either the same rating or a 9. I thought it was better than The Killer.
Oh, you're out of your mind, bro. No, dude, this was like because I tried to pinpoint because I was comparing the two movies in the sense of like of course The Killer's inspired by this movie, but also like what worked in The Killer that what did I love in The Killer that wasn't present in this film? Yeah. And I think there's a number of things. Like one, it's like I just don't think there's any sort of comparable scene in this movie to like that opening scene in The Killer where he misses the mark, and you got that song by the Smiths playing it. And I get that there's going to be like a production value and craft like difference between a film nowadays and a film back then. Like you're not going to have like as film was still like relatively newer back then, and the style, it was stylistically different. But I'm saying that there's a comparable version of that scene that in The Killer where he misses the mark that you could do in the 70s that would be just as good. Or what was this, 1969? So essentially the 70s, almost the 70s. Right,
but you have to remember that also with this film that the idea is different in the sense that with The Killer, it's like building up this guy who, again, like the Samurai, he's like, I am this perfect guy who has this rules, right? But I feel like with the Samurai, it's not so much that he fails, because he doesn't fail. Like, he kills the guy. I think with the Samurai is that he just wasn't perfect. Whereas in the Killer he failed, and then he had to kind of live out those consequences.
Yeah,
So I feel like there's a distinction there to be made. I think those between those two films. I think both these films
sure.
are great. Like, you know that when we talked about the Killer, I mean, this might as well be our review of the Killer too. When we talked about the
Yeah,
Killer, you
yeah,
know that
yeah.
I remember that I remember that I defended, not that I defended, but I know that I remember that I really liked The Killer, and that I was trying to kind of make up for whatever shortcomings the movie had when we saw it at the time. Um, in difference to that, like, again, like I don't have like issues with this movie.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, because obviously, like I had issues with the Killer as
Yeah.
well. I think another thing, like something that was the main thing that was missing, that I thought was well done in the Killer, that I thought was missing in this film was just, I think the joy. Again, I talked about this during the Killer episode, the Lost Killer episode, that the Killer was like a joy to watch because you're just watching this, this guy and his process, and like that's one of my favorite things in especially crime fiction is process, like that's why Breaking Bad is so great, for example, because it's process. It's
Hmm.
like, okay, we gotta, make the meth, and then how are we gonna sell it, and then how are we gonna, and all the things, all the complications that are gonna come with that, and the different schemes and stuff. And I didn't see anything like that with this guy. I didn't see anything, like I can't think of a scene where he was like clever,
Hmm.
besides I guess where he found he
Well,
found the bug,
because you have to remember
but
that
that was,
you have to
they
remember
didn't
that he
even
said
hide it.
you have to remember that he
They
said
didn't hide it well.
well, I mean, I guess so, but you have to also
Shit.
you also have to remember that he also was in that scene he was kind of playing hot and cold with the bird, which I found interesting. But it's also one of those things where, like, I did think that, for instance, um how he set up his alibi, I thought that was clever. Like, how he went, like, he committed the crime and then he went to those places and he made sure that the other guy kind of saw him, kind of not, like,
Hmm.
you could see how the guy, I mean, he was like a very clever guy and like very kind of meticulous. Um, so I appreciated that about his character. Like, he was just like a very meticulous character. That's even why he had the bird, because there was like a kind of bird that would become distressed if around like people who were not him. So he was
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
he had the bird for that purpose. Like, he just was like a very
No, that part
meticulous
was clever.
guy who, like, he again, like, I feel like that was the thing with him, that was like his downfall in the film, that regardless of all his meticulousness, he came short of perfection, which is what it was required to fulfill that task. Which again is it's like something that I find really fascinating for this film.
Yeah. Okay,
But I agree
interesting.
with you in the sense that it's like, in comparison to something like The Killer, there I feel like that movie goes a little bit more like beyond. Obviously, it has to kind of follow up this film, so it necessitates that. But
Mm,
yeah, I guess there's that element where, like, obviously, like you said, there are things in The Killer that I feel like are more, at the very least, like immediately like impactful.
yeah. And in this one I just felt like I don't know, he didn't seem um he wasn't as interesting as Michael Fassbender's character in The Killer either.
Yeah, well,
He was very,
he
and
talked less, and we didn't have his inner monologue like with Fassbender.
right, right, and of course the point of both of those characters was like they're very stone cold, stoic, and
Hmm.
like vapid. Like that's the point of the character. But I think with how vapid Michael Fassbender's character in The Killer was,
Hmm.
within that state of being vapid was, and within that stoicism was, there was something interesting in there.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, I just didn't feel that with this guy. Like he kind of just, his face annoyed me by the end. Like I was just like, go
Oh, dude,
away.
I love them. I love
I
this
was like,
man.
go away, dude.
No,
Get
I
out
love
of
this
here,
man.
man.
Yeah, I would say that if I were to rate performances of this kind of like stoic, like, characters that are emoting through very minute expressions, I would say that Gosling's performance in Drive trumps Alan's performance here. but just by a smidge. Like I thought that I loved him. I loved looking at him in this film. I really loved his performance. I feel like Fassbender falls short of those other guys. And you know how much I love Fassbender, but I think he gave the least like impressive performance instead of like in terms of like emotional range for a role like this one. I will defend this movie and I will defend Mr. Allen, Mr. Alan DeLon.
No, I gotcha. Defend him from my evil ass. No,
Yeah.
yeah, I just felt like this.
No, dude,
I think bottom line
I'm
for
happy
me,
that you have like a contrary opinion to me because now this makes two episodes in a row because you know we're coming off
yeah,
of the
man.
Mario episode, so I'm happy about that. I like it when we disagree with these things.
By the time we get to the Christmas special, we're gonna fight.
Yeah,
But the Christmas special is just gonna be us
a fight
having a
episode.
boxing match.
Yeah.
No, but I think bottom line for me, this film, I just felt like it had more work to do. It had more legwork to put in as far as like, you know, it just felt like it was really drawing stuff out. Yeah.
No, dude, I
That's
feel
it.
you.
Yeah.
I feel you. I feel you. And that was like my again when I was watching this movie, that was like my fear. I was like, oh, I can see how I was like, I can see how this kid could not click, you know. Yeah, I feel you. I hear what
Yeah.
you're saying.
And again, I love slow, quiet, methodical movies. I love them, dude. I
Right.
love No Country for Old
No, I
Men.
know
I
you
love
do.
The
Yeah.
Killer.
And you like The
I
Killer.
love The Conversation was
Yeah.
great. Like I love
You like Drive? Do you
this,
like the Wind and Refn version of this with
the
Gosling?
oh yeah, Drive is pretty good.
Yeah.
Like yeah, I love, like, this is one of my favorite types of plots. Like I actually really thought, I was surprised by my response to this movie because I love like just um these kinds of films where it's just quiet surveillance, cat and mouse. Like that's some of my favorite shit in all of cinema. So yeah, it kind of made it disappointing for me. This one just didn't click for me.
I see. I
That's it.
understand.
I'm glad you liked it though, man.
Oh, dude, I'm
And I
happy.
will
Yeah.
say, to end on a happier note, like common ground, like The Craft, I agree, dude. It was amazing. I
Yeah.
mean, it was so well shot. Like I loved his costume, like just
Yeah.
his
Oh,
look with the
I loved
trench
his
coat
look
and
in
the
this film
hat.
too. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so good. And like his movements, you're right. He was like a ghost. Like it was like he was gliding.
It was. It was fascinating to see this guy like do these things. Like, oh my god, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the all-time great
Yeah.
like French actors. I want to see more films by him. I know that there's a movie called High Noon that he's like very well known for. I want to see more movies with this guy because I was just so impressed by his performance.
Yeah. I want to pick, I do want to do some more noir films myself too. Like I know I picked Asphalt Jungle a long time ago.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I
This is
definitely
back
want
to
to see
back for
more.
me. Yeah. The
Yeah,
conversation
man.
ended this.
Yep. More I definitely got to throw some noir picks in there this season too. But yeah, man, that's it for me.
Hey, loved hearing what you had to say, dude. Well, everybody, I think that's the end of this episode, isn't it?
Yep. It's a wrap.
So all of that being said, Jake, why don't you tell us what you have for next week?
Yeah, man. So next week, I don't fucking know.